know that feeling? You're listening to someone speaking English, maybe a native speaker, and while you understand all the individual words, you know the grammar rules, you've definitely studied the vocabulary, but they're speaking quickly, naturally, and suddenly.
Yeah.
It's like all that careful structure you learned just dissolves.
Oh, yeah.
And you feel completely lost in just the stream of sound.
It is an incredibly common experience.
Yeah.
You know, you've built this fantastic foundation of vocabulary and grammar, which is absolutely essential. But the reality of fast, natural spoken English,
Yeah.
it just throws a curveball.
Yeah.
It sounds different, sometimes very different. The textbook examples you might have studied.
Absolutely. And that gap, right, between the English you learn and the English you actually hear in the real world, that's exactly what this deep dive is all about today. We're taking a really close look at some fascinating material that basically gives us the decoder ring for why natural spoken English sounds the way it does, especially when it gets fast.
Yeah, and that material, it really breaks down the mechanics of this whole thing. It focuses on two major areas, basically.
Okay.
First, the surprising ways pronunciation actually changes when words are spoken together quickly. Linking, reducing sounds, stuff like that.
Right.
And second, the absolutely critical role played by common expressions, phrasal verbs and idioms, stuff you can't guess the meaning of.
Okay, so think of this deep dive as your essential guide to navigating that real-world spoken English. By the end of our conversation, you'll have a much clearer understanding of what is happening when native speakers talk fast.
Yeah. Oh.
You'll be better equipped to understand it, and you'll add a whole collection of genuinely useful phrases to your own ability to communicate. It's about moving beyond just knowing words to understanding the flow and the flavor of everyday English.
Precisely. It's not just about academic knowledge. It's really about gaining practical insight. Insight that transforms your listening comprehension and empowers you to sound more natural yourself when you speak. It's about closing that gap we talked about between the classroom and the actual conversation.
Okay, so let's unpack this core challenge then. The material we looked at really highlights this. You have the vocabulary, you have the grammar, but you can still feel lost. Why?
Right.
Well, as we saw, there are these two main reasons that make fast-spoken English sound so different.
That's right. The first major culprit, as I mentioned, is the extensive way that pronunciation shifts occur. Sounds are linked together, they get reduced, or sometimes they're even dropped entirely.
Dropped completely.
Yeah. This happens naturally in fast speech as speakers. Well, we try to be efficient, cut corners slightly.
And the second reason, which is just as significant, is the heavy reliance native speakers place on expressions. These phrases aren't always literal.
Not at all.
They include phrasal verbs, idioms, and just these very common multi-word chunks of language where the meaning isn't obvious from the individual words alone.
Exactly. And the brilliance of the material we've been looking at is its practical approach. It doesn't just list rules like a textbook. It uses examples of natural spoken English, often through listening exercises, to actually demonstrate these changes in action. It's about hearing it, seeing why it sounds that way, and then understanding the underlying pattern or the meaning.
So we're going to dig into some of the most impactful insights and examples it provided today.
Let's do it.
So let's tackle the pronunciation changes first. This is often the most immediate hurdle for learners, isn't it? Words sound, squished, blurred, or just different.
Definitely.
And the first big phenomenon we encountered is how native speakers link and combine sounds between words.
This is absolutely fundamental to the rhythm of spoken English. Instead of saying each word separately, almost like a machine.
Like robots speak.
Yeah, exactly. Speakers blend words together. The final sound of one word very often connects directly to the beginning sound of the next word.
Okay.
Especially if that next word starts with a vowel sound. This creates a smooth, connected flow, but it can make it really hard to identify where one word ends and the next begins if you're not used to it.
Right, like in the example, back up. If you say it slowly, very clearly you hear back and up, two distinct words. But in natural speech, it sounds much more like back up, one word.
That's because the final consonant sound of back, that K sound, it links seamlessly onto the starting vowel sound of up. The air just flows continuously. You don't get that tiny pause you might make if you were speaking very, very deliberately.
Or take call it. It doesn't sound like call it. It links the L sound to the I sound, making it sound like call it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And you see this pattern everywhere. All over becomes all over.
All over.
Yeah, all links to the O.
Okay, what about a slightly different one, like his email.
Ah, that's a great example of how a consonant sound can actually change slightly before linking. The uz in his is often voiced, so it makes more of a z sound.
Right.
Because the next word, email, starts with a vowel sound. That z sound links directly onto it, making it sound like z-mail.
Z-mail.
Yeah, so you might hear someone say, I sent him z-mail.
Z-mail. That's fascinating how the ez turns into a z and then links. Okay. And a super common one, have a.
Oh, almost always sounds like have.
Oh, yeah. Have it.
The V sound links to the A. Do you have an? We have a meeting. It's one of those tiny automatic links that happens constantly.
These linking patterns are like the glue, aren't they? The glue of spoken English. Hearing them is critical. But it's not just adding sounds or linking them. Sometimes sounds get weakened or disappear entirely.
Exactly. This is the concept of reduction or dropping sounds, which usually happens in unstressed syllables or, less important words. Words like prepositions, articles, auxiliary verbs, they're often reduced.
One classic example from the material was should have.
Yes, like in the sentence, we should have had a backup plan. In natural speech, that should have often reduces to shoulda.
Shoulda.
The ill sound in should just disappears, it's silent, and becomes a quick, weak S sound. We should have had a backup plan.
Okay.
And you hear this with could have becoming coulda.
Coulda.
And would have becoming woulda, too. It's a very common pattern with those modal verbs, plus have.
And what about the word to? Like before a verb, as in, it's okay to be picky.
Right. When to is followed by a verb and it isn't stressed, it's very frequently reduced. It might sound like ta, or in this case, the T sound links with the next word's vowel and becomes very short. To be sounds almost like TB. Yeah, it's okay, TB picky.
Another tricky one involves the word her. The material highlighted, let her go.
Ah, yes. Here, you often get two things happening at once. The H sound at the beginning of her is very commonly dropped when it's unstressed. It just vanishes.
Right.
Then the final consonant of the previous word, the T in lent, links to the remaining vowel sound of her. So let her go can sound like let her go.
Let her go. Wow, so it's dropping a sound and linking what's left.
Exactly.
And of course, the queen of all reductions, going to.
Ah, the ubiquitous gonna. Yeah, going to almost always becomes gonna in informal speech. The material gave the example, do you think you're gonna stick it out? Gonna stick it out just collapses into gonna stick it out. This is like non-negotiable if you want to understand everyday conversations. You have to know gonna.
And that sentence also has another reduction. Do you think you are going to? That you are often becomes your.
Or even just ya.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to stick it out?
Exactly. The word you is very prone to reduction, especially when it's unstressed or at the start of a question. It can become ya or just a really weak yi sound.
Like, can you just ballpark?
Can just ballpark. Perfect. The material also pointed out a fascinating regional variation in the southern U.S. where you all reduces to y'all.
Y'all.
As in, y'all sit for the meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
While the presenter didn't use it themselves, it perfectly illustrates how you can combine and reduce.
And what about for? How does that reduce?
Good question. The word for often reduces to a weaker sound like fur or just fur when it's unstressed. Yeah, like in keep your eyes peeled for the turn, fur the turn, or thanks for sticking up for me. It's not the strong for sound unless you're emphasizing it.
Okay, that makes sense. And one final common sound drop illustrated was with them.
Yes, the sound in them is frequently dropped, especially after a consonant. It leaves just the M sound, which then kind of links back or attaches to the preceding word.
So the example, bring them up to speed.
Often sounds like bring him up to speed.
Bring them.
Yeah. Can you bring them up to speed on the project?
Bring them. So it's K, L, Z, the ill and should, T, M plus 2, C. Gosh, so many sounds changing or just disappearing.
It is a lot to process when you first hear it or when you start noticing it consciously. But recognizing these patterns is absolutely key. And there's another really common pronunciation change involving T and ed sounds, particularly in North American English.
Right, the flapping or tapping sound. I've heard of this.
Exactly. When a T or double two sound comes between two vowel sounds, or sometimes a vowel sound and an L or R sound, it often changes to a quick, soft sound. It's not a full, hard tap, more like a brief tap of the tongue against the roof of the mouth.
The classic example is a little. It doesn't sound like a little with a strong T.
Right.
But a little, or a little.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The two T's between the I vowel and the ul sound, which functions like a vowel here, become that flap D. The material highlighted edited it as a particularly challenging example because this flapping happens twice and then it links.
Oh, wow.
Edit it can sound like edited it.
Edit it. It's a real workout for the tongue, and honestly, native speakers might even stumble over that exact sequence sometimes. It's genuinely tricky to say quickly.
It's good to know it's not just us learners. What about caught up?
Again, that ike combination often functions phonetically like a T sound. Since it's followed by the vowel sound in up, it undergoes flapping. So caught up can sound like caught up or caught it up with that soft sound.
Yeah. And the same applies to what it, which often sounds like what it or what did, like what did you do instead of what did you do. The D in did also flaps between vowels there.
So recognizing that T or TT between vowels will likely sound like a quick D unlocks a lot of listening comprehension then.
Absolutely. It's one of the most consistent features of North American spoken English. And finally, related to pronunciation but also touching on grammar, we saw how auxiliary verbs are often dropped entirely in informal questions.
This feels like words are just missing when you hear it.
They are, from a strict grammatical perspective in written English anyway. But in casual spoken English, especially questions starting with are or have, the auxiliary verb is frequently omitted if the meaning is clear from context and, crucially, from the rising intonation.
Like the example, are you all set, becoming just you all set.
Exactly. The rising pitch at the end of set tells you it's a question, even though the word are is gone.
Yeah.
Another one mentioned was, have you edited it yet? Which can become, you edited it yet.
You edited it yet. Okay. It's completely standard in conversation, but if you're taught to always expect the auxiliary verb at the start of a question, it can really throw you off entirely.
It's a perfect illustration of how spoken English often prioritizes efficiency over strict grammatical correctness, as long as the meaning is conveyed clearly. Being aware that this happens is really half the battle in understanding it.
Wow, okay. So we've seen how sounds blend, disappear, or change. Loads going on there. But as we discussed earlier, the other major hurdle is the meaning of the words themselves, particularly when they come in these common multi-word chunks.
Right. This is the whole world of expressions, phrasal verbs, and idioms. You can know every single word in a phrase like, say, take something with a grain of salt, but still have absolutely no idea what it means collectively if you haven't learned that specific expression.
Yeah, the meaning isn't literal at all. Let's dive into some of the key phrases and idioms that were highlighted in the material. We can maybe group them a bit, because many seem to relate to similar ideas or situations like planning or feeling stressed.
That's a great approach. Let's start with expressions related to planning and preparation. The first one that came up was have a backup plan.
Simple but vital, right?
Absolutely. A backup plan is simply an alternative strategy you prepare in case your main plan doesn't work out. The material gave that really clear example of preparing a presentation.
Right, the computer versus the USB stick.
Exactly. Your main plan is using the computer in the room, but your backup plan is having the presentation on a USB stick, so you can still deliver it if the computer fails. It's all about being prepared for potential problems.
Okay, staying prepared. Sticking with planning and preparation, but maybe looking a bit further ahead, there was ballpark the cost, or a ballpark figure.
Ah, yes. This is pure business jargon, but also
Sure.
used in everyday estimation language. To ballpark something, usually a number like a cost or quantity, means to give a rough estimate, not a precise or exact figure.
So it comes from baseball, the stadium.
Yeah, the origin is the baseball field, the ballpark, but the idiom means a rough range or approximation.
So if someone asks you how much something will cost, but you don't have the exact numbers yet.
You'd give them a ballpark figure.
Right.
Exactly. You might say, look, if I had to ballpark it, I'd say maybe $5,000 to $7,000, but that's just a ballpark figure at this stage.
Okay.
You use ballpark as a verb, to ballpark it, or as a noun adjective, a ballpark figure. It manages expectations. It tells the listener this isn't the final exact quote.
And speaking of the future, but maybe a less defined future, there was down the line.
Down the line means at some point in the future, but the exact timing is unclear or unspecified. It's a way to talk about future potential or future consequences without committing to a specific date.
Like if you can't decide on something right now.
Right. You might say, let's revisit this down the line. That just means, let's discuss this again sometime in the future when we have more information or maybe more time. The material also gave a more serious example. If you don't improve your English skills now, it could hurt your career down the line. Meaning, at some point in your future career, the lack of English skills might become a significant disadvantage.
Okay, got it. Let's shift themes. How about expressions related to feeling tired or stressed? There were a couple of really common ones.
Yes, very common. First, be beat. It's a super informal way to say you are very, very tired, just completely exhausted.
Like, ugh, I'm beat after work today.
Precisely. It's simple and direct. I am beat. Used very frequently.
And then a slightly different kind of tiredness or stress, look frazzled or be frazzled.
Yeah, frazzled describes being tired, worried, or anxious to the point where it actually shows physically. The material described the signs, messy hair, tired eyes, maybe looking a bit disheveled, clothes messy.
So it's more than just tired, it's like visibly stressed out.
Exactly. It's about looking or feeling visibly stressed and worn out. So if you see a colleague who looks like they haven't slept in days, maybe they look a bit frantic.
You might ask.
You might say, "Hey, are you okay? You look a little frazzled." It acknowledges their stressed appearance in a sort of concerned way.
And maybe if everyone in the office is feeling beat and looking frazzled, you might decide to.
Call it a day. Yeah. This expression means to decide to stop working for the day. It can be because you've finished your tasks, but often it's because you're just too tired or unproductive to continue effectively.
Even if it's before the official end of the workday, say 3 p.m. instead of 5 p.m.
Absolutely. The material used that exact scenario. We're all beat and frazzled, let's just call it a day. It's a mutual decision to wrap things up and go home, stop being productive.
Okay, changing gears again. Let's look at expressions related to criticism, annoyance, or maybe personal quirks.
A rich category in everyday conversation. First up, piss someone off.
A strong one. We mentioned this earlier regarding politeness, didn't we?
Yes, and it's crucial to remember the nuance the material highlighted. It means to make someone very angry. If you say it directly to someone, "You're pissing me off," it's quite informal and definitely considered impolite.
Yeah, you wouldn't say that in a professional setting.
Definitely not to your boss. You'd probably only use that with close friends or maybe in a heated argument. However, it's very common and much less impolite when you're talking about someone to a third person.
Okay.
Like, "My colleague Mark really pissed me off in the meeting today." This is informal, yes, but widely used to express frustration about someone else's actions when complaining to a friend or another colleague, perhaps.
And there's also the state of being angry. Be pissed off.
Exactly. I was so pissed off when, you get the reason. The material used the example of coming home to a dirty house after the kids had promised to clean up.
Right.
I was so pissed off when I saw the mess. And just a note on pronunciation, pissed ends with a soft T sound here, not a T sound.
Okay, distinct uses there. How about nitpick?
To nitpick means to find fault with or criticize minor, insignificant details, often in an irritating way. It's focusing on tiny flaws rather than the overall picture.
Like the example of the lovely dinner where someone complains about the color of the plates or the art on the wall.
Perfect example. Everything else is great, the food, the company, but they focus on something completely trivial. That person is nitpicking.
Okay.
The material also gave the noun form nitpicker for someone who does this habitually. And it combined it with another useful informal phrase. "My mom nitpicks like crazy."
Like crazy.
Yeah, here like crazy just means a lot or extremely. It's very common. Yeah. She worries like crazy. He eats like crazy. So my mom nitpicks like crazy just means my mom nitpicks a lot.
Got it. Now, related but different, be picky.
Yes, the material correctly pointed out these are distinct. To be picky means to have strong preferences and be selective about what you like and dislike. It's not necessarily about finding fault with everything like nitpicking is. It's more about having specific tastes or standards.
Like picky eaters, kids who only eat certain foods.
The classic example. Kids are often picky eaters. They only like a limited range of foods. But adults can be picky too, and in some situations it's actually a good thing.
Really?
Yeah, the material noted it's okay to be picky sometimes, especially when making important decisions like choosing a job or a house or even a spouse. You should have strong preferences then. Being selective is good.
Good distinction.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what about be nosy?
To be nosy means showing an unwanted or excessive interest in other people's private affairs or lives. It's basically getting involved in things that are not your business.
Like looking through someone's stuff.
Yeah, the example used was checking your significant other's phone without permission. That is definitely considered being nosy.
Because it's private information you have no right to look at?
Exactly. And the advice often given is you shouldn't be so nosy, using the common contraction shouldn't or should not.
And related to things that annoy you, the phrase pet peeve.
A pet peeve is something specific that particularly annoys or irritates you, perhaps more than it might bother other people. It's a very personal annoyance.
And the material even listed some common ones.
It did. The top 3 given were loud chewing.
Ugh, yeah.
Bad manners, like not saying thank you when someone holds a door for you, which is a big thing in North America, apparently.
Right.
And clutter, meaning messiness, a messy room or desk.
These are things that just really get under someone's skin, as they say.
Exactly. And the material used the example, being nosy is one of my pet peeves, demonstrating how you can use the gerund form, the verb, plus ing acting as a noun to talk about an action as a pet peeve. Loud chewing is another pet peeve of mine.
Okay, let's look at expressions related to situations becoming difficult or surprising. How about out of hand?
Out of hand means something is or has become out of control, unmanageable. The material provided 2 common contexts for this.
One was about a party, wasn't it?
Yes, the party got a little out of hand. This usually implies the party became disorderly, maybe too loud, maybe things got broken, basically. A negative escalation of the situation beyond what was intended or controlled.
And the other example
Was, my shopping has gotten a little out of hand. Here, it's about losing control over personal behavior, specifically spending. It means you've been buying way too much, and your spending is now excessive and perhaps causing problems.
So it can apply to external situations and personal habits.
Right, both getting out of control.
How about something unexpected happening? Catch someone off guard.
To catch someone off guard means to surprise them, often with unexpected information, or maybe by doing something they weren't anticipating. The material used the example. His email really caught me off guard.
And it noted there were 2 ways that could be interpreted, right?
Precisely. It could mean you were surprised simply by the fact that he sent you an email. Maybe you don't hear from him often, so the arrival itself was surprising. Or it could mean you expected the email, but the content of the email contained surprising news or information. The context usually makes it clear which one it is.
And this is often used passively.
Very often. The material pointed out it's frequently used in the passive voice. I was caught off guard by his email. Both active and passive forms are very common.
Okay, let's move to some phrases about dealing with difficulty or commitment. Stick up for someone.
To stick up for someone means to defend or support them, especially when they're being criticized or attacked by others. It's about showing loyalty and standing by someone.
The material shared a nice little anecdote about the presenter's students defending them in the comments section when they received some negative feedback.
Yes, and how the presenter would feel genuinely thankful and would say something like, "Thanks for sticking up for me." It's a very positive action of support.
Now, 2 related phrases that sound similar but have a slight difference. Stick to something and stick it out.
Yeah, they are similar, both involving persistence, but with a subtle difference in emphasis that the material highlighted quite well. To stick to something means to continue doing something, especially something challenging or difficult, often because you've made a commitment or a promise.
Like sticking to a diet. That was the example, wasn't it?
The perfect example used in the material. It's so hard sticking to this diet. Continuing with a specific eating plan, particularly for health or weight loss, requires ongoing effort and commitment.
Right.
The material also clarified that diet here specifically means the eating plan, not just the general food you eat day to day. And notice that sticking to is used here in a gerund phrase. Sticking to this diet functions like a noun phrase in that sentence.
So sticking to is about maintaining that commitment. What about stick it out?
To stick it out means to continue doing something difficult or unpleasant until the end. The emphasis is on completing the entire duration or finishing the task, even if it's really tough.
Oh, okay.
The material connected it back to the diet example. Do you think you're going to stick it out?
Meaning, will you continue the diet until you reach your goal weight or finish the planned program?
Exactly. The material explained the difference is subtle but there. Stick to emphasizes fulfilling the commitment, while stick it out emphasizes enduring until completion. You could often use them together. It's hard to stick to this diet, but I'm determined to stick it out until I lose 10 pounds.
Got it. Okay, let's cover a few very common, perhaps simpler, but absolutely essential phrases. All set.
This is a very, very common phrase, just meaning ready or prepared. Used all the time in informal contexts.
Like when you're asking someone if they're ready to leave the house.
Exactly, just a quick all set. The material gave the slightly fuller example. You all set for the meeting tomorrow. And as we discussed earlier, this is often a question where the auxiliary are is dropped in casual speech. You all set.
And another one involving all over the map.
If something is all over the map, it means it's disorganized, it lacks focus, or it jumps illogically from one point to another.
It's confusing because there's no clear structure or thread, like a report that's really difficult to follow because it jumps around.
That was the example in the material. This report's all over the map. Means the information isn't presented in a coherent or logical way. Another example given was the consultant's recommendations were all over the map, meaning they were inconsistent, maybe contradictory, or just lacked a clear direction.
Got it. Unfocused and kind of messy. How about a visual one? Keep your eyes peeled.
To keep your eyes peeled means to watch very carefully and continuously, to be on alert for something specific you're looking for.
Like looking for a particular street sign when you're driving.
Yes, exactly.
Yay.
Keep your eyes peeled for the turn means watch carefully so you don't miss the street you need to turn on. Another great example from the material, very relevant if you're writing or editing, is keep your eyes peeled for any spelling or grammar mistakes. When proofreading,
Right.
you're scanning diligently, actively looking to spot any errors.
That's an imperative sentence too, isn't it? Starting with the base verb keep, like giving an instruction.
Exactly. It's often used as a piece of advice or instruction given in that direct imperative form.
Okay. No, we talked earlier about the pronunciation difficulty of edited it yet. The material actually revisited this specific point in the expressions section too.
Yes, and it's a brilliant point about how pronunciation difficulty can genuinely influence the way we phrase things in natural speech. Because edited it yet with all those quick flap sounds is actually quite tricky to say smoothly.
Edited yet. Yeah, it's tough.
Speakers might naturally, maybe unconsciously, restructure the sentence to avoid it.
How would they do that? What's the alternative?
By using a noun instead of the pronoun it. Instead of have you edited it yet? Wait, which sounds like you edited yet. Well, you might more commonly hear have you edited the report yet? Or have you edited the document yet?
Ah, okay.
Replacing it with a clear noun like report or document makes the sentence much easier to pronounce fluently. It breaks up that tricky sequence of sounds.
And the material used this example to reinforce the grammar of the present perfect tense, right? Using yet for questions and negatives. You finished yet? I haven't finished yet. And using already for affirmative statements. I've already finished.
It's a perfect little case study showing the interplay between sounds, grammar, and just natural speaking habits, how we adapt to make things flow better.
A couple more related to career and skills. Have what it takes.
To have what it takes means to possess the necessary qualities, skills, or characteristics to succeed at something specific.
Okay.
The material applied this directly to language learning, noting that becoming fluent requires certain traits like patience, consistency, motivation, dedication.
So to achieve fluency, you need to cultivate those qualities. You need to have what it takes.
Precisely. It's about having that internal capability and drive for the challenge. And connecting that to career progression, there was the phrase move up.
Which just means getting a promotion or a higher, more important position in a company?
Yes, exactly. To move up the corporate ladder, as they say. The material linked the two ideas, suggesting that having what it takes in terms of skills and dedication is often what helps you move up faster in your career.
Next, be caught up.
To be caught up means you have completed all the tasks that were pending or previously assigned to you. You're no longer behind schedule. You've finished the backlog.
Like finally clearing out your email inbox after vacation.
Exactly. The material used that very example. I'm all caught up on my emails. This means you've read and responded to all the emails you needed to deal with.
Okay.
The addition of all, as in I'm all caught up, is extremely common. It just adds a little emphasis, really, even though I'm caught up essentially means the same thing. You're finished with the backlog.
Two final, very frequent, informal phrases we should cover. Have a sec.
This is a standard casual way to ask if someone has a very short amount of time available, usually because you want to speak to them briefly or ask a quick question. Sec is just short for second.
Hey, do you have a sec? Pretty common opener.
Exactly. The material used the example, do you have a sec, to bring them up to speed.
Which brings us neatly to the last phrase in our collection. Bring someone up to speed.
To bring someone up to speed means to update them, to give them the latest information or news about a situation or topic that they've missed, maybe because they were away or not involved previously.
Like telling someone everything that happened at work while they were on vacation, summarizing the key points.
That's a perfect scenario. You might ask, could you bring me up to speed on what happened in the meeting yesterday? You're asking for a summary of the development so you have the current information.
And finally, a simple one that's absolutely essential for social life. Go out.
Right. While go out can have other meanings in a social context, it most commonly means to leave your home to participate in some kind of social activity, like going to a restaurant, a bar, a movie, or visiting friends.
Like planning your evening or talking about last night?
Yes. The material showed examples like, are you going out tonight? Using the present continuous for a future plan, and I went out last night, using the past simple. It's a very basic but incredibly frequent phrasal verb, crucial for talking about social activities.
Wow, okay. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground here, from the incredibly subtle shifts in how sounds connect, reduce, and change in fast speech. You know, the linking, the dropped H's, the gunnas and shouldas, the flapping T, those missing auxiliaries, to this whole rich landscape of expressions where the meaning is so much more than just the individual words, pet peeves, ballpark figures, sticking it out.
It truly underscores how different natural spoken English really is from the more idealized or carefully pronounced version you might encounter in beginner materials or textbooks.
Definitely.
Understanding these patterns and mastering these common expressions is absolutely fundamental to bridging that gap we talked about and becoming truly comfortable understanding native speakers when they're just talking at a normal pace.
And the approach in the material we looked at is so valuable because it's based on hearing this stuff in natural context, then breaking it down and explaining why it happens or what it means.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just memorizing rules from a list, it's about training your ear and your brain to process English the way native speakers actually produce it and understand it.
It is. It gives you concrete things to listen for now. When you hear something confusing, you can start asking yourself, okay, wait, was that a linking sound? Did a word get reduced there? Or is that an expression I just don't know yet and need to look up?
Right.
It transforms that feeling of being lost into more of a puzzle you actually have the tools to start solving. This deep dive, by highlighting these specific points and examples, really aims to give you those aha moments, those keys that unlock deeper comprehension.
So to wrap up this deep dive, then, the key takeaway is pretty clear. Mastering natural spoken English requires focusing on these two major areas. First, recognizing the automatic pronunciation changes that happen in connected speech.
The sound stuff.
And second, building a really strong vocabulary of common expressions, phrasal verbs, and idioms. The meaning stuff.
Armed with this awareness, you're just much better equipped to understand the English you hear all around you in movies, podcasts, work meetings, real conversations.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it helps you to sound more natural and fluent yourself when you speak.
Absolutely. And as you move forward, listening to English every day, maybe consider this. How many other tiny sound changes, subtle reductions, or non-literal phrases might you be hearing that aren't taught in standard lessons but are absolutely vital for real-world fluency?
Good question.
Now that you know what to listen for those connections, those reductions like gonna or shoulda, those multi-word chunks like down the line or catch off guard, what is just one specific phrase or sound pattern that you hear often that you could actively try to analyze and understand next. Start small, focus on one thing, and just keep peeling back the layers of natural spoken English.